I was watching Trump during the run up to his election. And I was seeing all these court cases against him and all these attacks on him, legal attacks. And as he got closer and closer to the election, including right up to almost his inauguration, they were going away.
Yeah, that was so. I was baffled by that. Like, how do they just go away?
They were going away, and they were going away after they'd done their job, basically. Because if you remember, Jake, after his first term, when Biden came in, basically Trump's star was fading. He was fading into the background.
And he was until he started all the arrests.
Then came the raid on Mar-a-Lago to do with classified documents. And suddenly I watched this because I like to observe life without having a dogmatic, this is what's going on kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I just observe life, and I watched it. And I thought, well, I'm going to be interested to see what happens to Trump's popularity now. And immediately his star started to rise. They're trying to stop Trump. And this went on and on and on. Then you had the assassination attempt when he miraculously was shot in the ear, but the ear didn't confirm that when he took the bandage off after a few days. And suddenly it's like they're after Trump. And then, as you rightly say, all these so-called influencers, including people like Alex Jones, who is now supporting everything he once railed against.
He's the globalist now.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's insane. Whatever the globalist talking point is, Alex Jones is going to be puppeting it now. It's just sad.
Exactly. And so you had these influencers that were all driving this narrative that the deep state is out to get Trump. And I'm sitting there, I'm posting things on X and getting untold abuse, but I don't mind. I don't care. I'm interested in what's going on, not a statue.
What's true is more important.
And I'm shaking my head and I'm thinking, what do you mean the deep state's out to get him? He's deep state to his DNA. Just look at his history back in the days even of business and stuff. How the Rothschilds, through Wilbur Ross, a 24-year Rothschild employee, brought together 72 banks to save Trump from the most monumental, massive bankruptcy in the early 90s. And without that, he would have been nowhere in business, never mind in politics. And then you had his blatant connections to Jeffrey Epstein and what Epstein talked about him being his best friend for 10 years or more. And suddenly he comes on the political scene. And, through this, I picked him up in 2016. I said, this guy's a fraud. And I think this guy's meant to be the president. And he got in. But now, when he got in the second time, I was looking at it and I'm thinking, this is a scam going on here. And the MAGA base is being scammed to support him, to get him into office. And when he gets there, he is going to be a very different character, not least in pushing the AI stuff. And that's exactly what's happened. And again, if you look at Biden and Clinton and Obama, they are controlled by this cult. And then you've got, on the so-called right, you've got your Bushes. I mean, Father George Bush.
Peter a long family of it.
Oh dear, I wrote about him in my books years ago. Unbelievable what
I need to read all your old books. I haven't read those.
Yeah,
read a couple of them, but
and then you've got the Republicans controlled by the same force. So what is that whoever gets into power is going to advance that agenda, which they all have. The point is, you've got different constituencies you have to keep relatively happy. So if you are of the left and you're in power, then you have to just pay a bit of lip service to what you think your natural constituency wants.
Yep.
And if you're of the right, you have to do the same. But of course, Trump may talk about running again in 2028 and all that stuff. But basically, this is his last term. He's got no more election to win. And if you look at him, his cognitive dismantling, he probably won't be around to run again.
Yeah, they probably want to trade him with J.D. Vance, which is something I've been thinking, and you said that in your book. You know, there's several more things I want to talk about till we get into the stuff that you get called crazy for. But no, the Trump stuff's really important. Like, for one, Epstein and him he said he was best friend. They flew together at least 7 times. That's 2 guys with private jets that typically don't, change their schedules around. If you have a private jet, you're usually not flying with other people. That's a lot of times to fly. Their connection was so close. I'm kind of thinking that maybe Trump was controlled all along, but he's such an egomaniac. They also have stuff from the Epstein files on him. And it seems like maybe they showed him that recently, like, hey, we have this on you. He's been accused of raping several 13-year-old girls with Epstein at the house that was all cameraed up. One of the girls, I believe, was shot in the head after, according to the Epstein's files. They say it wasn't confirmed, but someone reported that, a girl was raped by Epstein and Trump at the house, and he was concerned she was going to get killed, and then she got shot in the head right after that. So these types of things, to me, it seems like he's probably controlled, but then also blackmailed on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Epstein thing was a Mossad CIA blackmail operation. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a number of the women now, young teenagers then, who were pulled into the Epstein circle network, and they all tell you about the hidden microphones and cameras. So it was an obvious blackmail operation. Now, this is interesting. First of all, Trump has been in the whole ultra-Zionist arena way back. I mean, his father was a friend of Netanyahu when Netanyahu was in America, and then you had this period where he's a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein is running this blackmail operation. And Trump was clearly compromised. Then, out of nowhere, in 2015, 2016, he suddenly announces he's going to run for the presidency. And he wins. And in his first term, he basically, not entirely, but basically, overwhelmingly, gave Israel everything it wanted. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He recognized the Golan Heights as Israel territory. There's a thing, I think it's called Trump Heights now in that Golan area, named after him as a result of that. And then he's come in this time, and it's blatantly obvious he is controlled by Israel. It's blatantly
so
obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've written about in my books over the years, that network that controls Israel, of which Netanyahu is a serious frontman, connects into this global cult. It's a very significant aspect of this global cult. And so when you look at what happened in Gaza, you had the work of absolute extreme psychopaths, both Trump in supplying the weapons and in Netanyahu, dropping them on Palestinians. And so you then look at what they must have on Trump as a result of his association, and you've basically got a dual situation where he has enormous sympathy for Israel and this Netanyahu ring within the cult. And he also is subject to enormous blackmail. And when you think that the lengths he's gone to stop the totality of these documents coming out regard to Epstein, then it's just confirmation of what the hell must be in him.
Yeah, it must be extreme. They released the part probably by accident, the part of allegedly of him raping and a girl getting killed. That was released. So imagine what they're not releasing. They say they've only released 1% of them, and he's, our Congress passed a law saying he has to release them. He's still not doing it. Our judges have ordered it, and he's just saying no. It's insanity. Anyone that's supporting Trump after that, this guy's clearly protecting a pedophile blackmail ring for operation, and people are going, MAGA? Like, get the fuck out of here. There becomes a point where it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, but the situation you have is his soft support has evaporated. People that
he has lost a lot of people.
Yeah, people that believed that he is going to he was going to do what he said he'd do and not do what he said he is doing. They've drifted away. You see that in the polls. But what you're left with is the hardcore people who they have a choice. They can look at the situation and they can say, oh, I was wrong there. I got scammed there. Or you double down. And the more you double down, as people like Alex Jones have found out and others, and all the time he's getting more extreme, but you're now not only committed to have supported him into office, you're now doubling down despite what he's done up to this point. So what are you going to do now? Say, no, I was wrong to the first time and I was wrong to double down. No, people like that don't do that. They double down, no matter what he does. And basically what happens is they get sucked in to trying to convince, I'm seeing this with Alex Jones all the time, trying to convince themselves that he is the person they said he was. And that they therefore disappear up their own backsides, trying to justify things that he's doing as if they are somehow just bringing the deep state down. Now, here's the thing, Jake, which is an important point. I watch the Alex Joneses and the people like him, and there are many. You have Benny Johnsons and all these other people. And they talk about the fact that Trump is bringing down the deep state. That's what he's doing. He's bringing down the old world order. Okay, he is, but not for the reasons they say. You know, if you have a status quo, whatever it is, a political status quo, a financial status quo, then if you want to move that to another status quo, you want to advance it to the next stage of your plan, then you can't do that while the status quo exists, because it's going to stop it moving on. And so what we're seeing is not Trump bringing down the deep state and the old order in the way that they suggest. We're seeing Trump as a wrecking ball, economically, politically, in so many multi-level areas. He's bringing down the old order. Okay, so you can go back right into history and see this cult agenda unfolding. But let's pick it up at the First World War. Wars are fantastic for changing, transforming irreversibly what existed before the war. If you have a war with a country, it's the same. If you have a world war, then the world's never the same again. So you had a pre-First World War world. Then you had the First World War, and what that did was destroy the status quo. the global status quo. Now suddenly, when we got to 1918, the world is a very different place, and it allowed through Rothschild-dominated operations like the Versailles Peace Conference in 1919 to have the world redrawn. So much of the world was redrawn, it was never the same again. You then had the next stage of the demolition of the status quo, the pre-First World War status quo, and that was the Great Depression, which affected, the world. And then you had the Second World War. So immediately you've got the pre-First World War status quo being absolutely slaughtered through the first half of the 20th century. And at the end of the Second World War, the world was absolutely nothing like it was in 1914.
Yeah.
And what did you have then? You had the centralization of global power, because when you watch the transition of this global cult operation plan, it follows a very clear direction, which is the constant centralization of power. Because the more you centralize power, the more power the fewer and fewer and fewer have over the more and more and more. So at the end,
they use wars and tragedies to get that. That's what I've noticed.
Exactly.
Sorry to cut you off, but I noticed that World War II, 9/11, how they use these tragedies to get their events done.
Exactly.
You've been calling this out for years.
It's a thing a phrase I coined in the 1990s: problem, reaction, solution. Create the problem and then offer the solution to the problem, which is to transform the world and advance your agenda for more and more centralization of power. So at the end of the Second World War, you had the creation of the United Nations after the League of Nations, after the First World War had not worked. You had the Bretton Woods Agreement, you had the creation of the World Bank, the IMF, all these global centralization institutions. And that's pretty much what we've had up to very recent times. That period, basically the period of my life. I was born in 1952, but 7 years after the Second World War. And that's been my world up to very recently, relatively recently. But now the idea is to move to the endgame phase they've been aiming towards all along, which is the AI digital control phase of hijacking human cognition, perception completely through AI, and controlling people's movement and decision making and possibility via digital control. Now, that means this stage between the end of the Second World War and relatively recently has to go so that can come in. And that's what Trump is doing. He's the wrecking ball, and there are others around the world doing the same, but he's the focal point.
Yeah, Netanyahu over in the Middle East.
Order. Now, what the Alex Joneses of this world are doing is saying he's bringing down the deep state. No, he's not. He's owned by the deep state, if you want to call it that, the global cult. And he's just destroying the status quo so a new one can it be introduced, which is what's happening simultaneously. You've got him wrecking ball the status quo, and he's circled by the AI oligarchs to push on to the next stage of the end game, which is AI digital control.
If you want to read more and watch more of my content, then go to the description under the video where you can buy my books. The latest one is The Roadmap, where you can get tickets for public events, and how you can subscribe to a fantastic video channel called Iconic, iconic.com.